Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Fortunato. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Cleveland Division of the FBI, and I lead its national security team. Before I begin, I'd like to ask my colleagues up front to introduce themselves and the agencies they represent.
Sure. Captain John Altman with the Ohio State Highway Patrol.
Troy Hamilton, FBI. Mac Group with the U.S. Border Patrol.
Deputy Chief Damian with Toledo Police Department. Assistant Chief Mike Trinley, Toledo Police.
Justin Herdman, United States Attorney, Northern District of Ohio.
This morning, we're here to announce the arrest of Damon Joseph, age 21, of Holland, Ohio. Damon Joseph was placed into custody without incident at approximately 6 p.m. Friday, December 7th in Holland, Ohio, by members of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Joseph is charged with attempting to provide material support and resources to a foreign terrorist organization. U.S. Attorney Justin Herdman will soon discuss the charges. Law enforcement became aware of Joseph in May of this year through his online social media activities. From May until December 7th, less than 8 months, Joint Terrorism Task Force watched him progress from virtual radicalized jihadist to attack planner. In September, Joseph, a convert to Islam and a consumer of ISIS propaganda, pledged his allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS. At the time, Joseph was focused on making videos through which he hoped would inspire and encourage, as Joseph termed it, brothers in the West. He expressed interest in being put in contact with like-minded brothers. When queried by an undercover employee whether Joseph felt hate for the people in the United States, Joseph replied, quote, "Oh yeah, definitely. The gays, the Christians, the Catholics, the Jews, you name it," end quote. In October, he continued his production of ISIS inspirational videos. Though his transition from virtual to physical jihad was well underway, he described to an undercover employee his technique for spotting on social media what Joseph termed recruits. Alarmingly, Joseph expressed his support for martyrdom operations. And in the wake of the horrific shooting weeks ago at the Pittsburgh area Tree of Life Synagogue, Joseph stated his belief that Jewish people were evil and they got what was coming to them. In November, he stated that physical jihad was the path he would eventually take. He disclosed to an undercover employee that his physical jihad would consist of a shooting. In December, he transitioned to attack planning. Days ago, he provided an undercover employee a draft plan which outlined general operational and logistical considerations for an attack that Joseph hoped would target Jews who support the State of Israel. Joseph identified 2 synagogues as his targets and discussed the weapons he believed would inflict mass casualties. As part of his operational planning, Joseph directed an undercover employee to drive around a synagogue complex. Joseph stated he wanted to kill a rabbi and expressed a desire to begin the attack in the sanctuary. And Joseph stated he was not going in with a martyrdom mindset, but rather a killing mindset. Moreover, he would shoot at law enforcement and not surrender. Joseph was not known to possess any firearms, as he believed a violent charge in his past prevented him from illegally purchasing or possessing a firearm or ammunition, though he had professed an interest in edged weapons. On December 7, Joseph agreed to take possession of 2 rifles that Joseph believed the undercover employee had purchased for the attack at Joseph's direction. He was arrested after taking possession of the weapons and has since provided a statement to law enforcement officers wherein Joseph detailed his plans for the attack. While at no time did law enforcement feel the public was in danger, we did not want to risk Joseph finding that like-minded person he sought or acquiring the tools to commit the mass casualty terrorist attack he so desired. As a result, Damon Joseph was placed into custody this past Friday evening. There are no known co-conspirators in his attack planning. However, as with all investigations at this stage, we continue to explore all avenues and possible connections. This arrest obviously has occurred during the Jewish celebration of Hanukkah, and we are pleased that through law enforcement efforts we have thwarted this intended violent act of terrorism in a house of worship against our fellow citizens. We will have another arrest to announce this morning regarding a separate investigation. Before doing that, I will turn it over to U.S. Attorney Justin Herdman to discuss the charges filed against Joseph.
Thank you, Agent Fortunato. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to start off by thanking many of the people in this room here who are up here with us. These are men and women who have worked tirelessly over the past several months to bring these cases to a conclusion. But perhaps more importantly, I think it's important to thank those folks who are not in the room today. They are men and women who have spent nights and weekends, holidays, tracking these defendants that we're talking about today and making sure that our citizens here in Northwest Ohio were kept safe. As most of us have gone about the past several months enjoying the end of our summer vacations, Thanksgiving, engaging in Christmas shopping, celebrating Hanukkah, the men and women of the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force and the United States Attorney's Office have been working very hard on these cases that we're announcing today. At the outset, I want to stress that the complaints we'll be discussing this morning, they lay out facts that allege violations of federal criminal law. These charges are only allegations, though, and every criminal defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Now, as Agent Fortunato just described, Damon Joseph has been charged in a federal criminal complaint with one count of attempting to provide material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization, in this case ISIS. That charge carries a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. Mr. Joseph is currently scheduled to appear in federal court in Toledo here today at 1:00 p.m., and our office will then have 30 days to present that case to a grand jury for an indictment. As Agent Fortunato outlined, and as alleged in the complaint, the facts in this case are indeed troubling. Mr. Joseph pursued a detailed and calculated plan to strike synagogues in the Toledo area. He attempted to recruit others to this plot. He selected firearms that he handpicked because he believed that they would deliver the maximum amount of damage and destruction. And he made very clear that his intention, his personal goal, was to kill a rabbi. These facts are disturbing on their own, but this plot was carried out just a month after attacks on the Jewish for the attack in Pittsburgh. He wanted to carry out something similar here in Toledo. But as Agent Fortunato just outlined, Mr. Joseph's hatred was not just limited to Jewish people. He was even upset that the leaders of a local mosque were critical of ISIS. In essence, Mr. Joseph's target was more than just a synagogue. It was our American way of life, in which we are free to hold our own individual values and beliefs, to decide where we pray and who we love, and to do all of this without any threat of violence or intimidation. And as this arrest today proves, law enforcement ensures that those values and beliefs are protected and that they will endure. I'll now turn it back over to Agent Fortunato to provide details about another case in which another defendant was arrested this morning. It's important to note that while there are similar facts in both of these cases, namely that the defendants in both of these cases plan to use violence in the name of furthering their own personal agendas and ideology, these cases are separate and they are not related.
Okay, moving to our second arrest this morning. Within the last hour, Elizabeth LeCron, age 23, of Toledo, Ohio, was placed into custody by the Joint Terrorism Task Force and is being charged with the transport of explosives with intent. U.S. Attorney Justin Herdman will again discuss the charges upon the conclusion of my comments. In June of this year, concerning information from a Toledo area citizen was reported to the Toledo Police Department. The information indicated an individual had recently expressed a desire to conduct a violent attack. This person was in possession of multiple firearms and the beginning elements of a pipe bomb. A case was opened by the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and lead investigative responsibilities were assigned to a Toledo Police Department detective assigned to the task force as a task force officer. Through this investigation, Elizabeth LeCron was identified as a subject of interest. LeCron was active on social media, and through social media, glorified mass murderers such as the Columbine gunman, the Charleston, South Carolina church gunman, and others. For example, LeCron posted photographs of the Columbine gunmen, referring to them as godlike. Since at least July, LeCron has been in contact with the individual incarcerated in federal prison in Indiana for his role in the Charleston, South Carolina church shooting. In August of this year, Lacron traveled to Columbine, the memorial in Colorado, in advance of the trip she posted, quote, "It's going to be a lot of fun and I can't wait to post pictures," end quote. Also in August, law enforcement conducted a court-authorized search of Lacron's residence. An AK-47, a shotgun, multiple handguns, a large quantity of ammunition, and a bag containing numerous end caps were found. And as law enforcement is well aware, end caps are often and can be used to construct pipe bombs. Furthermore, law enforcement found journal entries by Lacron discussing a violent attack. Throughout the investigation, Lacron expressed violent scenarios she was contemplating. She stated she had been involved in a plan to commit an upscale mass murder, as she called it, and her master plan was to commit an attack at a bar in the city of Toledo. She later said she wanted to meet with other anarchists to form a team and wanted to damage a livestock farm to set the livestock free. In September, undercover employees were introduced to Lacron. Her fixation on violence continued. When asked about the possibility that Lacron's actions could possibly kill innocent bystanders, she replied that she had no issue with that because the innocent bystanders, they are, quote, probably part of the problem, end quote. She also suggested her workplace as a potential target because she believed the company to be polluting a river behind a company facility. Ultimately, Lacron decided to acquire components for a pipe bomb which she believed would be placed on a pipeline. So on December 8th, just 2 days ago, Lacron purchased 2 pounds of gunpowder and over 600 screws, likely intended as shrapnel, with knowledge these items would be used to construct the pipe bombs. As a result, Lacron was arrested this morning without incident at her residence in Toledo. At no time did law enforcement feel the public was in danger. However, we cannot wait to risk the chance she would find somebody like-minded to engage in any acts she expressed she wanted to commit over the preceding weeks and months. Of course, as with the Damon Joseph matter, we'll continue to run investigative leads to ground and exhaust any avenues and ensure there's no further threat to public safety. Law enforcement, of course, we say thank you to the public for reporting this individual to us, because without this initial report from a private citizen, law enforcement may not have known about the danger she presented. And thank you to the men and women of the JTTF who investigated both of these matters. And as evidenced by the cases you have heard about today, these collaborative law enforcement relationships between local, state, and federal partners are more important than ever. Before I turn it over to U.S. Attorney Herdman, Deputy Chief Mike Trundle from Toledo PD wanted to make a few comments. Mike.
Thank you. Good morning. On behalf of Chief Kroll, I'd like to say thank you to our federal and state partners for your continued support. Today's arrest shows again the excellent relationship between local and federal law enforcement in the city of Toledo. We have proven that leveraging resources from multiple agencies makes us better. And we are going to be committed to continue to strengthen those relationships with the common goal of making the city of Toledo safer for all the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. As Agent Fortunato outlined, Ms. Lacron has been taken into custody, and she is expected to appear in federal court in Toledo later today. And like in the previous case, the facts that are alleged in the complaint are simply that. They are allegations. Now, Ms. Lacron has been charged via complaint with 1 count of violating Title 18 United States Code, Section 844D, as in Delta, which prohibits a person from transporting or receiving any explosive with the intent or knowledge that it will be used to kill, injure, or to damage property. And that charge carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in federal prison. The facts alleged in this complaint are, as well as, similar to Mr. Joseph, they are also disturbing in this case. As Agent Fortunato laid out, Ms. Lacron discussed plans to launch what she called an upscale mass murder at a bar in Toledo. She noted that there were 2 ways in and out of the bar, which could be used as an advantage when police and emergency responders arrived. And as with the plot involving Mr. Joseph, it is chilling to think what would have happened if Ms. Lacron had been able to act on her plan. Ms. Lacron did want to meet with other anarchists to launch an attack, and first it was to set livestock free, then it was to damage anything that she saw as harming the environment, and more recently it involved targeting a pipeline in an undisclosed location in Georgia. Underlying all of these plans, though, was Ms. Lecron's fascination with mass casualty events. These included the violent attacks at Columbine High School and the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. The complaint details facts that lay out this behavior by Ms. Lecron and that demonstrate evidence of her knowledge and intent. And I also want to say a special thank you to Toledo Police Chief George Kroll, who is represented here today by Deputy Chief Michael Trundle. This case started when the Toledo Police received information and they passed it on to the JTTF. The system worked the way it was supposed to in this case. And that is a credit, as always, to the men and women of the Toledo Police Department. And the entire community owes them a debt of gratitude as a result of that. I have spent a lot of time in Toledo as a prosecutor, both as a line prosecutor and as a United States attorney. And I know that the people who we're discussing today and who are arrested today, they are not representative of the values of our community. But I do think it's important to note that these cases, along with the conviction last week of James Fields, who has ties to Northwest Ohio and killed an innocent bystander in Charlottesville, Virginia, these cases demonstrate that terrorism comes in many forms. Terrorists don't follow just one playbook. They don't all have religious motivations for what they do. Whether they espouse views that are associated with ISIS, with anarchism, with neo-Nazis, the fact is that no one is allowed to harm another person in the name of religion, their cause, their beliefs. We are blessed with liberty in this country, and that liberty extends to protect free speech, including speech that almost every American would find vile and reprehensible. But when those words turn into action, when they involve plans to harm someone or someplace, law enforcement will be there to arrest them and to prosecute them. We do not have to, and we will not wait for someone to shoot up innocent worshipers at a synagogue or to detonate a bomb. We will act to protect our nation, our people, our friends, our neighbors, and the values that we hold dear. Thank you. We'll now take some questions, too.
Can you tell us, sir, let's start with the Lecron. What bar was she talking about?
So we're not going to give any specific information about targets at this point in time or publicly disclose them. I'm sure there's probably a similar question regarding the places of worship, and we're not going to be in a position to disclose that at this point in time.
Can you tell us what area of the city she worked in or lived in?
We don't want to go too far in that detail just yet.
There will be, the court docket will have publicly released, and if you don't have them already, the complaints and similar information that would probably provide some of the specificity that you're looking for.
Can you describe the tips from the public in a little bit more detail?
I'll just say the initial tip that came in, I don't want to go too far into that, but the tip came in saying that she had some disturbing ideas and thoughts, which the person who provided the tip was aware of. And as we always do, we start taking a look at those things to see actually is there a threat to national security. Sometimes those tips wash out. In this particular instance, those tips led to the investigation in which the Toledo Police detective and the JTTF investigated.
Can you describe how this person knew she had these thoughts? I mean, was it somebody that she saw online, on the internet, or spoke with personally?
Sure, I can't go too far into that because of the ongoing investigation.
Did you alert the folks in the Jewish community before the arrest, or did you talk to them afterward? Were they in the loop at all?
We've had conversations this morning with members of the community. We have a series of outreach meetings that are going to be planned over the next afternoon and days to ensure that they are comfortable with where the case has ended up here today with charges, and that we can address any concerns, ongoing concerns that the community has about their safety.
Do you have any idea of when this attack was planned for, when she was planning? You know, is it weeks, months from now, or is it the pretty immediate future?
You're referring to Ms. Lecron?
Yes.
As the complaint alleges, it was within days that the attack was going to take place.
Go back to Joseph for a second. Do you get the sense that he was trying to copycat Pittsburgh, or that he had already had the idea in his head and then Pittsburgh happened?
I don't know about a copycat, and I don't think there's anything in the complaint that speaks to that point. He clearly had some of his own ideas, and those are the ideas he espoused to the undercover employees, and those are ideas we've learned through the investigation, and for whatever reason, he was looking to put that plan into place.
So did he have a specific violent target before Pittsburgh had even happened?
I can't speak to that point, but I can speak to he did have some specificity in terms of operational considerations, and as you get a chance to look through the complaint, you'll see some of those operational and logistical considerations he had in terms of his planning. But I can't speak to the timing, whether it was before or after Pittsburgh.
I think if you look at the complaint, you'll see by the dates that his focus on the Jewish community and synagogues, it certainly became more focused and clear post-Pittsburgh.
Can you describe run-ins that they may have had with law enforcement in the past, both of these suspects?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Joseph had some interaction with the criminal justice system. I won't get into any more detail about that. I think we're currently unaware of any interaction that Ms. Lacron had with law enforcement previously.
These are not people then that were on law enforcement radar before these events that these guys were made aware of?
Correct.
You mentioned them both kind of wanting to find correspondence or people that talk about the same thing.
Sure.
From these arrests, were you able to find people that possibly, had the similar ideas, wanting to commit acts of violence in the Toledo area?
Sure. Obviously, anytime we have investigations like this, we're looking at the full spectrum of folks that they communicate with. When we find someone that's of interest, that we have a predicated investigation where, again, as the attorney said, where not only are they trying to advance their social political goals, but they're doing so through force or violence in violation of federal law. Many people may have similar like minds in terms of their positions on certain political issues. However, we don't get involved in investigating unless there is that threat of force or violence. So it may be like-minded in terms of how they feel about certain issues, but certainly not like-minded in terms of actually planning an attack or planning to blow something up. So two very different things, two different distinctions there.
Can we just go back to the bar real quick?
Sure.
Did you guys have to put special agents, police officers around and inside that bar just to watch it for the time being?
I guess we won't go too far into any sort of operational considerations we might have had, but I am comfortable saying that at no time during either of the things we've discussed here today that there was an immediate threat to the public or to public safety. We obviously, when plotting becomes advanced, there's different considerations we take or communications we make, but in this particular case, I don't know that we were at that point with the bar itself.
And did you notify the bar owner that owned the bar with the 2 levels? Because it had 2 levels, right? Is that correct?
That's correct. Is in the complaint. Yeah, I actually don't want to go too far into who we may or may not have contacted in terms of facilitating the investigation.
If we go back to Mr. Joseph.
Sure.
In your investigation so far, have you found one single trigger? Was there some sort of interaction he had with the Jewish community, something he read about, heard about? Was there something that just got him on to the Jewish community?
I mean, not that we've seen, and certainly nothing laid out in the complaint, and that may come, that may come in the coming days and weeks. Certainly, anytime a horrific event happens, or we intercede and stop something before it happens, we take a good, hard, deep dive into what makes that person tick and why they make the decisions that they did. I don't know that we're there yet with Mr. Joseph or Ms. Lacron, but we will be looking for that exact thing, like why is this person wired that way, and what made them this way, but we're not there yet.
We want to thank you all very much. Appreciate it.